It happened in the middle of a crowded afternoon, beneath the polished glass walls of one of the city's most powerful companies. Hundreds of employees hurried past the front entrance, too focused on getting home to notice the young woman collapse onto the concrete steps with a stack of papers scattering into the wind. But one person stopped. The silent CEO who had built an empire without ever speaking a single word looked down at the stranger everyone else ignored, and made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. If you believe kindness can save a life, forgiveness can heal broken hearts, and hope deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community. Rowan Mercer had been called many things throughout his life. Brilliant, ruthless, unreachable, cold. Newspapers loved writing about the billionaire CEO who had lost his voice in a childhood accident and communicated only through expressions, handwritten notes, and a digital tablet. People mistook his silence for arrogance because silence often made others uncomfortable. Yet the few who truly knew him understood that his inability to speak had sharpened something much rarer than words. It had taught him to notice what everyone else overlooked. Every afternoon Rowan left the headquarters at precisely 4 o'clock. His routine never changed. He reviewed the day's reports, thanked employees with a simple nod, and walked through the front entrance before the evening rush. That afternoon seemed no different until he noticed the woman lying motionless on the steps while dozens of people simply walked around her as though she were invisible. Her name was Nora Bennett. She was 29 years old and worked 3 jobs just to keep her younger brother in university after their parents had died within 18 months of each other. Her mornings began cleaning offices before sunrise. Her afternoons were spent filing documents at Rowan's company through a temporary agency. Her evenings were filled with serving coffee in a busy cafe across town. She rarely slept more than 4 hours, rarely complained, and never asked anyone for help. For weeks Nora had hidden the exhaustion behind tired smiles. She skipped meals so her brother would never have to choose between textbooks and groceries. Every payday disappeared into rent, bills, tuition, and medicine for her brother's chronic asthma. Nobody at work knew any of it because she believed struggles carried quietly were easier for others to bear. As Rowan approached, he immediately noticed details everyone else had missed. Her hands were trembling. Her lips had lost their color. There was an unopened lunch container beside her bag. It was still full. He knelt beside her without hesitation. Security guards rushed forward, expecting the CEO to step back and allow them to handle the situation, but Rowan refused. He carefully supported Nora's head and signaled for emergency services while writing quickly on his tablet. The message was simple. Stay with her. When paramedics arrived, they explained that severe exhaustion, dehydration, and malnutrition had caused her collapse. She had pushed her body beyond its limits for too long. As they prepared to leave, Nora slowly regained consciousness. Embarrassment filled her face before confusion replaced it. She realized the man kneeling beside her was the company's famous CEO. She tried to apologize even though she had done nothing wrong. Rowan simply offered a reassuring smile and handed her a bottle of water before following the ambulance to the hospital. The doctors assured him she would recover with rest and proper nutrition. Most executives would have returned to work after hearing those words. Rowan stayed. He quietly arranged for every medical expense to be covered without revealing his involvement. The following week Nora returned to work earlier than expected. She feared missing another day would cost her temporary position. She arrived determined to pretend nothing had happened. Instead, she found a permanent employee badge waiting on her desk. There was no explanation. Only a handwritten note. Your health matters more than your attendance. No signature. She immediately recognized the elegant handwriting from the hospital. For the first time in years, someone had seen her as a person instead of a worker. Nora wanted to thank Rowan personally, but every attempt failed. His schedule remained full of meetings, charity events, and board decisions. She accepted that some kindnesses never expected gratitude. Meanwhile, Rowan found himself thinking about the exhausted woman more often than he expected. He began quietly reviewing employee welfare reports instead of only financial statements. What he discovered disturbed him deeply. Several temporary workers skipped lunch because wages barely covered living costs. Some worked overtime without adequate breaks. Others hid medical issues because they feared losing their positions. The company had become profitable, but somewhere along the way compassion had been buried beneath productivity charts. Rowan could not ignore what he had learned. Within weeks he introduced new employee wellness programs, free daily meals, flexible emergency leave, and financial counseling. Managers complained about increased expenses. Rowan simply responded with another written sentence. Healthy people build stronger companies. Employees quickly noticed the difference. Morale improved. Productivity increased. Absences dropped. The board members who had criticized his decision slowly admitted he had been right. But Nora's struggles were far from over. One afternoon she received devastating news. Her younger brother, Elliot, had been involved in a serious cycling accident while traveling to university. Although his injuries were not life-threatening, months of rehabilitation would prevent him from working his part-time job. Their already fragile finances collapsed overnight. Nora considered resigning from the company so she could return to working 3 jobs again. Before she submitted her resignation, Rowan happened to pass her desk and noticed tears she desperately tried to hide. Without asking intrusive questions, he quietly invited her into his office. She hesitated, intimidated by the enormous room overlooking the city skyline. Instead of discussing work, Rowan slid a notebook across the desk. He simply wrote. What happened? For the first time since her parents died, Nora allowed herself to tell someone the truth. She described the years of sacrifice. The endless exhaustion. The fear of failing her brother. The loneliness of carrying everything alone. Rowan listened without interrupting. His own memories surfaced. After losing his voice as a child, he had watched classmates avoid him because conversations felt awkward. His parents had spent years defending him from people who assumed silence meant weakness. Pain recognized pain. By the time Nora finished writing her final sentence through tears, Rowan had already made another decision. The company established an employee emergency assistance fund that very month. Officially, it existed for every worker facing unexpected hardship. Unofficially, it had been inspired by one woman who had nearly died from carrying too much alone. Nora refused direct charity. She accepted the assistance only because it was available to everyone equally. That preserved her dignity. Months passed. Elliot slowly recovered. Nora regained her strength. For the first time in years, she laughed more than she cried. The office transformed as well. Employees began checking on one another instead of competing relentlessly. Managers organized volunteer projects. Birthdays were celebrated. Mental health days became normal rather than shameful. One act of compassion had spread further than anyone imagined. Yet another challenge arrived unexpectedly. A major financial magazine published an article accusing Rowan of wasting company profits on unnecessary employee benefits. Investors panicked. Share prices dipped. Board members pressured him to reverse every program he had introduced. Many expected the famously silent CEO to surrender. Instead, Rowan organized the largest company meeting in its history. Thousands of employees gathered in the auditorium. Instead of delivering a speech, Rowan stood silently on stage while a large screen displayed handwritten messages one sentence at a time. The first message read, "A company succeeds because of people." The second appeared. "Profit without compassion is temporary." Then another. "If someone collapses outside our doors because they are trying to survive, we have already failed." The entire auditorium fell silent. Many employees wiped away tears because they remembered the afternoon Nora had collapsed. No names were mentioned. No personal stories were exposed. Everyone understood. The following morning something extraordinary happened. Employees voluntarily shared stories online about how the new programs had changed their lives. One single parent explained how flexible hours allowed her to attend her daughter's school performances. A cancer survivor described receiving paid leave during treatment. A young graduate revealed that free lunches had helped him save enough money to avoid homelessness. Public opinion changed almost overnight. Customers praised the company's humanity. Investors slowly realized compassionate leadership attracted loyal employees and stronger long-term performance. Within 6 months the business achieved record profits. The same magazine that criticized Rowan published another article calling him one of the most visionary leaders of the decade. He accepted the recognition with the same quiet smile he had worn from the beginning. Years later, during the opening of a new community education center funded by the company, Nora stood beside Rowan as Director of Employee Well-Being, a position she never imagined could exist. She looked across the crowd filled with workers, students, families, and children laughing beneath the bright afternoon sun. None of them knew how close she had come to disappearing unnoticed on those company steps. Rowan glanced toward her. No words passed between them. None were needed. Sometimes the greatest conversations happen without a single spoken sentence. The crowd applauded as children ran through the garden surrounding the new center. Elliot, now fully recovered and working as a teacher, smiled proudly at his sister. Families gathered together, volunteers distributed books to local students, and the building stood as proof that kindness always leaves a legacy far greater than wealth alone. Nora realized that the strongest people were not those who carried every burden alone. They were the ones brave enough to accept compassion and determined enough to pass it on to others. Before we reach the end of this story, tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when one person's kindness completely changed your life, or have you been that person for someone else? Your story may inspire another viewer who needs hope today. As the afternoon sunlight reflected across the glass headquarters where everything had begun, Rowan watched employees leave work smiling instead of rushing away exhausted. The place had become more than a successful company. It had become a community where people mattered more than numbers, where compassion stood beside ambition, and where no one who stumbled would ever be left behind again. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that the smallest act of kindness can become the turning point in someone else's life, and sometimes refusing to walk away is the greatest gift we can ever give.